Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting of District Council on Tuesday the 9th of December. The microphone's working and thank you for attending or watching online. I'm Councillor Bode, Chairman of the Committee. Please be aware that this meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube and is also being recorded. Details of how the recordings are stored and how long they are retained for are available via the Council's website. As part of this Council's commitment to reducing the use of paper, Councillors and officers may use electronic devices during the meeting. Emergency procedures. There are no planned tests of the emergency alarm. If the alarm does sound, everyone present must leave by a designated exit route, which are clearly marked. If the referred route is blocked, use the nearest signed alternative route. Do not use the lift. Everyone must assemble at the designated point, which is in the central reservation in Regent Grove, in front of the police station. Members of the public and press should report to a member of the Town Hall staff who will be wearing yellow fluorescent jackets. Councillors and officers should report to the committee officer. Please do not re-enter the building until the fire officer advises it's safe to do so. Alongside me, I have on my right Laura Burrell, the Committee Services Officer, and further down on the right is Nigel Bell, our Legal Advisor. To my left, we have Gary Fisher, Development Manager, Erin Weatherstone, Principal Planning Officer. No, it's not. Adam Walker, Principal Planning Officer. Erin Weatherstone, Principal Planning Officer. Sophie Ladd, Planning Assistant. Laura Slevin, Planning Assistant, and Millie Flynn, Senior Planning Officer. Members, can I check that you've all seen the update report and had the opportunity to read it? Yep, okay. Apologies and substitutes. We have received no apologies from councillors tonight. Councillor Falp is substituted with Councillor Margrave and Councillor Russell is substituted with Councillor Dixon. Councillor Knight is substituted with Councillor Collins. Are there any other apologies? No, not suspecting any. Members' declaration of interest. Anyone with a pecuniary interest will need to leave the room and will be called back in at the end of the item. Members are also reminded of a need to declare predetermination on any matter. Please, may I have any declaration of interest? Councillor Gifford.
Yes, I need to declare an interest on item 11, Dale Street, the TPO for Dale Street Methodist Church, as I'm a member of Dale Street Methodist Church.
Councillor Falp.
W241093, Leamington County Golf Course. It's in my ward, and I am on the planning committee at the Town Council, but I did not attend any of the meetings when this was discussed.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you. The same application, number 5 on the list, Leamington County Golf Course. My wife is a member of Leamington County. We have studiously avoided discussing this to the extent I didn't even know it was a nursing home application until I read the report last week.
Site visits. Does any member wish to record if they've undertaken a visit on their own for applications on this evening's agenda? No, okay. Item 4, minutes. We now need to confirm the minutes of the previous meetings. In line with our procedures, all members can vote on the approval of minutes, although they may not have been there at the meeting. Firstly, the 4th of November 2025. Proposal, please. Councillor Kennedy, seconder. Councillor Gifford. All those in favour, please show. Those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. And the 5th of November. Councillor Gifford, you proposing? Martin Luckhurst seconding, by looks of it. All those in favour of acceptance through record? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? No. Okay. Following the registered speakers, the committee will then debate the application. During the debate, members, including myself, may well raise technical questions and issues to which the planning officers or advisors may need to respond, and I will normally invite them to do so. Please can I remind everyone that no officer or council will be permitted to address the committee without my permission. The committee will then make its decision based on the information within the report, any representation at the meeting and the content of its debate. Once the decision is made, I will announce it after the vote. For the benefit of visitors, and I've never seen so many for a long time, attending the committee, all applications will be decided in accordance with the current National Planning Policy Framework and the Council's adopted local plan policies, which set out a presumption in favour of sustainable development, unless there are material planning considerations that indicate otherwise. Applications are considered against policies containing local neighbourhood development plans that have been approved following a public referendum. Applications that accord with the local plan will usually be permitted. Applications must only be refused where there are valid planning reasons for doing so. This will help to avoid legal challenges against decisions and avoid unnecessary legal costs to the Council and the Council taxpayer. Please note that I've already agreed, if needed, the meeting will adjourn at a suitable point somewhere around 2 hours into the meeting to allow for a comfort break. Finally, whilst I and all the committee members fully appreciate the importance of the decision being made this evening, they may well generate strong feelings, I take this opportunity to remind everybody to remain calm and courteous at all times. There aren't any action points for me to update you on from the previous meeting, so we move on to the first application, which is W/25/0125, Coventry Airport, Rowley Road, Baggington. It's a major application.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. So this application is a Reserve Matters application for a series of enabling works in connection with the development of a battery manufacturing facility at Coventry Airport. Those enabling works comprise formation of development plateaus and other earthworks, strategic drainage features, primary substation, strategic landscaping, and the demolition of existing structures, plus the formation of the main spine road within the site. So this is the site edged in red. It's a cross-boundary application with Coventry City Council because a small area of highway land up in the top right here falls within the jurisdiction of Coventry. So this is just an aerial photograph showing the site in a bit more detail. So of course we've got the airport in the middle with the runway. Towards the south, established commercial development, which is Middlemarch Industrial Estate and Business Park, and then the newer commercial development being developed by Segro. And then over to the west, there's Baggington Village, UK BIC facility just here, and then other commercial development towards the north. So, just taking it back to start with, to the outline planning permission. So that was granted approval in 2022, and I'll just highlight three important elements of that. So, first and foremost, that permission established the principle of development on the site. It's also established the points of access into the development. They were approved, and there are 6 of those in total. And it also establishes a set of parameters, which we can see on this plan here, excuse me, which is to guide the reserve matters. So in terms of the parameters that were fixed through condition on the outline permission, it's the extent of the built development zones, which you can see in the light coloured here, which is Zone 1 and Zone 2. Zone 2 being permitting slightly taller buildings. You've then got a landscape buffer, pretty much around most of the edge of the site, and it fixes the maximum amount of floor space that can come forward through the reserve matters and the maximum building heights in the respective zones. So just to put a bit of sort of more context to the proposed enabling works that I'll run through shortly. So this is the indicative master plan that's come forward, and this reflects another reserve matters application that's been received by the council, which deals with the vertical build phase, and that will come forward to this planning committee at a future date at some point in the new year. But for now, it's just the enabling works that we're looking at. So we've obviously got the development plateaus where the proposed buildings are going, works to form the spine road running through the site, and then in terms of what's most pertinent to this, to the enabling works, is all the strategic landscaping around the edge of the site, the suds basins, the drainage ponds, primary substation, which is just in there, and then, yeah, with this access road connecting to access 1, access 5, and through here to access 2. So I guess all that black background that I've laid out, the proposed enabling works essentially relate to the entirety of the airport site, because there's regrading works across the piece to form those development plateaus and the attenuation basins. There's demolition of some existing structures, which you can just see here with which I'm highlighting, just there. The drainage features across the site, which would sit within the areas of strategic landscaping around the edge, and then the substation, which is located up here in orange, just off Silver Eagle Way. So to provide a bit more detail around the strategic landscape, the overarching framework for the proposals. So we've got a western corridor on this side of the site, northern corridor up here, and then a eastern corridor that would form a buffer with the existing commercial development. This just provides some more detail on that. So this is the open space typology plan. So there's areas of public open space which will be within that western corridor that I just highlighted, and up into the north part of the site as well. And then this side, the eastern corridor, would be a natural area to provide a buffer, and there'd be no public access to that part of the site. And then there'd be landscaping provided along the spine road running through the site that would channel views and create something of a boulevard feel. This is just a section that I've taken from one of the submitted plans, just to give a bit of a flavour as to the landscaping proposals. So on the left-hand side, so this is in relation to Baggington Village. So you've got the Oak Public House there, then there's an existing bund, Silver Eagle Way just here, and then these are the proposals. So there'll be creation of another bund. So this is the section looking through this part of the site. So planted up with woodland to help screen the development and provide a framework for the future built form. And then this is the building which I'm not considering tonight, but the built form will come forward in the future, and then just showing how it relates to Segro Park on this side of the site. I'll just focus in on the substation. So this is one of the proposed primary substations that forms part of this application. It would sit next to some of the public open space. So this is an orchard with a hedge around it. So there would be screening of the substation. This is Silver Eagle Way. So again, it's set back and down from the highway with an area of landscaping in between, including a series of trees. And this is what the primary substation would look like. So it would be enclosed by green weld mesh fencing, just typical electrical equipment, switch station, 3 transformers that you can see here, and a small unit to power the substation switch house. So in terms of the summary of the main points, it's a reserve matters application for a series of enabling works to enable the delivery of the approved battery manufacturing facility on the site. Works involve demolition of existing structures, regrading of land to form the future site levels, strategic green infrastructure around the edges of the site, creation of sustainable drainage features, formation of the main spine road within the site, and the erection of a substation. Now, all these proposed works are consistent with the parameters plan for the development that was approved and I showed a little earlier. And the proposals would facilitate the delivery of the battery manufacturing facility and thereby help to bring forward the economic benefits associated with that development. The proposals would also provide benefits in their own right in terms of public amenity and biodiversity. There is a benefit in terms of the strategic landscaping coming forward as part of the first phase because it enables those benefits in terms of public amenity and biodiversity to be realised at an early stage. So overall, the proposed works are considered acceptable and are therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just a reminder before we start that the planning application outline has been granted. And this meeting tonight isn't considering that, can't change that decision. So it would pay to concentrate on the applications as in. So call on Councillor Walter Bush as Speaker, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Chairman, councillors. My name's Walter Bush. I represent Baginton Parish Council in relation to this application. In the first instance, I would like to make the point that we are concerned about the speed with which this application has been brought forward and believe it to be premature in its very nature. The main issues we have is the substation location and noise issue as it's demonstrated on there. I have a drawing on my documents you have there which give us a clear view of the transformer system. Yeah, as you will see, it sits on Silver Eagle Way, which is an unadopted road currently with some major issues to it. And this substation sits directly on the side of the road in a very exposed position. I understand it's fenced in and what have you, but it's very vulnerable, I think, to traffic issues. Should anything happen in this location, then it will have a great impact on the surrounding area. Particularly, you've got UK BIC. I think we all remember Heathrow and the problems that created when it went up. It's also, as we say, not on an adopted road, so it won't be treated during bad weather and things like that. And the speed of vehicles through there at the moment is unregulated because there is no set speed limit. If there was an accident, then we believe UK BIC would be very vulnerable, as would the services on the airport as well. Unfortunately, the location also falls in a critical area because Silver Eagle Way is the main backbone for the Segro site. If anything was to happen there that was to block that road, everything would back up, or you would adopt, I think, a policy of trying to come through the village, which would be unacceptable. The roads around that area aren't in parameter. So the impact would be widespread. We've had the village locked up before in the days when Middlemarch caught fire, the entrance and things like that. This would be exactly the same situation. You can get emergency vehicles to the traffic island, but once you hit that traffic island, if Silver Eagle Way is locked, you can't move.
Thank you. You've had your 3 minutes.
Sorry?
You've had your 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I call second speaker, Councillor Jim Roberts. Again, you have 3 minutes when you start.
Good evening, everybody.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I must warn you, I'm going to be a little bit outspoken on this topic. Walter's very capable of covering all the very local issues. It's now nearly 4 years since the committee approved the outline development in principle, whilst clearly stating that this Greenbelt site must only be used for an automotive gigafactory. In those years that have passed, there have been leak and speculation about possible users for the site, but no real facts have reached the public domain. Mr. Barnes from Planning Prospects, representing the applicants, is due to speak later. Perhaps he has knowledge of potential users who will commit to the private investment needed for the site. Unless I haven't seen them, I find it disappointing that the applicants themselves are not appearing before you this evening. Meanwhile, our regional car industry as an end user is much diminished. Indeed, the whole European car industry is in a state of turmoil under EV legislation and the capture of rapidly increasing shares of the market by Chinese companies. The question for you now is, when do we call it a day on this gigafactory dream? This is in danger of becoming a white elephant in our green belt. We all recognise the airport is unsustainable in its current state, and that has now been made explicit by its planned closure in May. There are other green options that the site could be used for. The insistence on a gigafactory is simply blocking any of those options being brought forward, and yet 4 years have passed and there's no user. The site could be used for a solar farm. It could be made available for a data centre, and AI systems are valuably changing the world. Part of the site could be retained for a so-called low-altitude flight industry, which is rapidly developing all-electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles for either passenger or freight use. And in fact, I prepared an outline of this possibility many months ago and gave it to various interested parties, but to no avail. This new era of green air mobility is led by American companies, but there are still some British startups. The CAA made a plea for the airport to be kept open as new electric aircraft technology is rapidly developing. Complete closure of the airport will clearly be an irreversible loss. Now, the committee cannot re-examine all the objections made to the Gigafactory project.
Thank you. Can you draw your remarks to a close, please?
I can just say, in view of this problem, to keep spending £23 million of taxpayer funds without any explicit evidence that it will capture a client is wrong, and you should postpone this approval. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Mr. Stephen Clark. Again, 3 minutes from when you start.
My name is Stephen Clark, and I am the co-owner, along with Robert Docherty, my fellow director, at Aerotech Aircraft Maintenance Limited. We have been based at Coventry Airport for 25 years, and in that time, with Robert's engineer expertise, we have grown into a respected maintenance company employing a dozen staff, and we have £1 million turnover. We would like to have expanded further. However, over the last 10 years, we have witnessed the closure of facilities, the restriction of opening days and hours, and the gradual rundown of the airport, resulting in the departure of many thriving businesses. In this same time period, we have seen our neighbouring GA Business Airport at Oxford thrive under genuine private investment, which has resulted in new hangars, a new aircraft maintenance facility covering 14 acres, and the development of a business park to attract technology startups, leveraging its proximity to local universities. This has now positioned it as a key player in the UK aviation sector. All of this could have been Coventry's future as well. Instead, it has been squandered as the Coventry City Council and this planning committee have been played for fools by the Rigby Group with their simple developer's trick of bait and switch. I sat here in January 2022 and told you all that a gigafactory was never going to be a viable option on this site, as proved later by the JLR Tater Somerset decision, and that this was simply a ruse to get the exceptional circumstances to remove the airport from the Greenbelt protections. Now, following the previous bait, I'm awaiting on you all tonight to pass the switch in this next stage, as the new smaller building footprints outlined in the change of plans prove that the large gigafactory will never be built. Hence the change in semantics to Green Gigapark, the Green Gigapark. What a joke. Note that our businesses, have already been given notice to quit the airfield next June, before today's decision has even been approved. 2 new directors of Coventry Airport, Mike Murray and Sarah Stacey, have now been appointed from the real estate arm of the Rigby Group. Can you not see that the arrogance of the developers to run rings around you? Sir Peter Rigby and his 2 sons are laughing in your face. Let's stand back and assess. A billionaire and his 2 sons have made millions of pounds in profit out of this, and you will have succeeded in destroying a vital UK infrastructure asset, wasting millions of pounds of taxpayers' money in grants and investment zone incentives, and replacing skilled jobs with warehouse opportunities. I'm afraid you should be ashamed of yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. I have County Councillor Ben Edwards. You have 3 minutes.
A battery factory at the scale that's outlined does not need an end user, it needs a delivery partner, someone to define what will be built, how it will operate and what technical requirements it must meet. That person does not exist today, leaving unknown technical questions. Battery technology is one of the fastest moving sectors anywhere. Right now there are 3 competing chemistries: lithium-ion, the standard laptop battery with known fire and toxicity risks; lithium iron phosphate, safer but much heavier; and sodium-ion, cheaper, far more environmentally benign, but lower energy density. The applicants cannot tell us with certainty which will be used, so how do we know that the earthworks, plateaus, road alignments and bunding being fixed today are correct and appropriate? The detailed building layout is coming forward as multiple plots, not the single facility the outline permission was sold on. Do the traffic models still work with multiple operators, each with different shift patterns and HGV cycles? Will each plot have its own safety systems? Do they need earth barriers between? In an emergency, can this road layout actually manage evacuation routes and blue light access? These aren't theoretical questions. A delivery partner should be here to answer them. In their absence, you're being asked to approve enabling works blind, and that blindness creates risk. If a manufacturer eventually does arrive with a different road layout or earthworks, that's a new application to be as fiercely contested as this one, adding costs to the project and works that need to be dug up. We've seen the consequences of this before. Just north of that site, in 2016, major ground modelling was carried out on Greenbelt for a project that did have a delivery partner, JLR, who then pulled out. That land remains derelict and unproductive to this day. You risk this evening repeating that mistake, essentially at airport scale. There are precedents to refuse this. Discovery Academy was refused by Nuneaton Borough Council because, and I quote, there would be no certainty as to what would be delivered. And Cheshire East refused Manor Point Business Park with the application would provide no certainty as to what could be built out. So I ask you to refuse this application on 4 counts. Without a delivery partner, there are more unknowns than certainties and no technical basis to judge whether this is appropriate. The risks of approving the wrong enabling works now far outweigh any short-term benefits. These groundworks are more appropriate for an industrial estate than a factory and do not relate to the spirit or assumptions made in the outline permission. And finally, since the applicants have failed to secure a delivery partner 4 years later and with no sign of one on the horizon, whatever the benefits, the idea of a battery production on Coventry Airport is now a zombie project surviving only on hope, and hope is not a strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Terry Wells. You have 3 minutes when you start.
Good afternoon, my name is Terry. I'm a parent of 2 young children aged 9 and 6 and I live directly beside the proposed site. I'm asking you to refuse this application. The NPPF requires decisions to be clear, evidenced and deliverable. This application seeks major enabling works without a confirmed gigafactory operator. That means no certainty about the final use, the scale or the impacts. It is not deliverable in planning terms and it is not consistent with local plan policy that requires a defined, justified proposal before approval. Paragraph 130 requires developments to ensure a high standard of amenity for existing and future users. Our community is already stretched beyond reasonable limits. Years of noise, dust, vibration, heavy vehicles and light pollution from surrounding sites. Our windows and washing are regularly coated in dust. At night we hear the humming of machinery. The cumulative impact on mental and physical well-being is real. This proposal adds a 24/7 industrial operation with no break for residents. The impact is clearly unacceptable. The NPPF requires planning authorities to ensure the development is safe and resilient from risks, including industrial hazards and environmental impacts. A lithium-ion battery manufacturing and recycling facility presents recognised risks, toxic fumes, hydrogen fluoride release, severe respiratory harm and long-term exposure concerns. So I ask, what independent hazardous substances and fire risk assessments have been carried out by Fire Service, Public Health, HSE or the Environment Agency? And critically, how is risk managed when family homes sit metres from the boundary? Has the revised draining design been fully risk assessed? Open ponds raise contamination risks over our rivers and the lithium fire runoff must be contained, yet the new design provides no clear containment and seems based on non-battery standards. These questions must be answered before approval, not afterwards through conditions. The local plan makes clear employment land be suitably located and compatible with neighbouring uses. This application conflicts with a long-established residential village and no policy supports this degree of conflict between uses. The NPPF requires the development gives great weight to the conservation of heritage assets, including Baggett's Castle, Limp Roman Fort, St John's Church, Midland Air Museum and the historic character of Baggington. The ongoing erosion of Baggington's historic environment directly conflicts the NPPF requirements to protect the heritage assets and their landscape context. Offering a post office as a public benefit does not come close to outweighing the scale of harm to Baggington's heritage and the impact on our community. To conclude, this application is premature and uncertain. The NPPF and local plan both require decisions based on clear evidence, not speculation. Planning is a hazardous gigafactory metres from homes and children is neither sustainable nor humane. Please protect our well-being. Please refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now call on Robert Barnes. And you have 3 minutes when you start.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Rob Barnes. I'm the planning agent for the application, and the applicant is also with me tonight to support the proposals. At the outset, it's critical to reiterate what this application is for and the decision you're being asked to make today. This is emphatically not a decision about allowing a gigafactory. It's not about factory design or amenity, traffic, emissions, aviation, the occupier or greenbelt. Most of those issues have already been agreed when the outline permission was granted by you, and some will come before you in the future when the reserve matters for the buildings are decided. This is not an application for any of those things. Today, you simply have to consider whether, in the manner we have proposed, it is agreeable to demolish some buildings, adjust levels within the site, add drainage features and a substation, and build an internal spine road, although not the junctions of that road with a public highway. Coventry City Council have already approved the part of this application that sits in their area. Importantly, we're also asking for your agreements for the first phase of development to be led by about 36 hectares of high-quality strategic landscaping to create a deep, carefully designed green perimeter to the site with extensive woodland, parkland, orchard, hedgerow, meadow and wetland planting. When the design you're being asked to approve today is in place, there will be no buildings, no associated traffic, in fact, no negative impacts at all. The application is simply to create the framework within which buildings will sit, and those buildings are not being considered today, nor is the principle of allowing those buildings. The applicant team and your officers have worked hard to get to this point with the application, where there are no objections from technical consultees. Your officer's report is clear about the straightforward nature of the proposals in terms of levels, drainage, demolition, the substation and Spine Road. I would draw your attention, though, to the language used by your officer referring to the proposed landscaping. It is described as substantial, varied, generous and delivering benefits of public amenity and biodiversity. Your officer recognises that the amount of public open space proposed far exceeds the policy requirement, and also that this will be easily accessible and cohesively linked into landscaping around other developments locally. In summary, this is an application that sits fully within the scope of what was already approved at the outline stage. It proposes works to prepare the site, but nothing to give rise to any impacts once complete. The extensive landscaping proposed should be recognised as a significant benefit, and we hope you're able to approve it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pam Redford, you have 5 minutes when you start.
Thank you, Chair. Committee, you've already heard outline consent was given to this site over 3 years ago for a gigafactory on Greenbelt land. This was given under very special circumstances. In this application, you're being asked to give consent to reserved matters for site-wide enabling works for the proposed gigafactory. However, in more than 3 years, there have been no serious offers from any end user, and there are still no confirmation of serious interest. This site will remain in Greenbelt if no confirmation of end user comes forward to progress the build. And at this moment in time, nothing other than a gigafactory can be built on it without fitting the criteria for very special circumstances. So in effect, you are being asked to make a decision on what is now a very slim possibility of a gigafactory coming forward. This current application is no more than an attempt to keep the outline planning alive. You may say, well, what about the I-zone? The investment zone was supposed to be for the associated industries around the gigafactory, giving support and benefiting from the factory. Without the gigafactory, will the I-zone still attract those industries? Given the current economic situation, will other types of industries take up the option? How can we make decisions on possibilities? Whatever comes forward, we should be giving serious consideration to the issues I have already raised in my original submission. All these issues should be addressed now, not after a gigafactory and or an I-zone are built. Even if a factory does not materialise, an investment zone will come forward, and that will have exactly the same issues. Lastly, and by no means least, as a Green Council, we should consider both the effect of the environmental impact to this area and those that live there, as well as to WDC's green credentials. In the case of a gigafactory, can we seriously support the transportation of lithium and cobalt, the raw materials of battery production across the world, when we are extolling the virtues of net zero? For these reasons, I would ask that more investigation take place before approval and defer your decision until a definite end user comes forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Now call on Councillor Josh Payne. You have 5 minutes when you start.
Thank you very much, Chair. The first point to make is about the stage we're at in the process. As other speakers have mentioned, this is a reserved matters application, and officers have laid out very clearly at the end of the report that the Planning Committee cannot revisit issues that were decided at the outline permission stage. So I sympathise with some of the concerns expressed, but legally, this committee can't get into a discussion about lithium, for example, or about the electricity supply. It's not meant to take the discussion there. If it did do that, it would need exceptionally good reasons to do so. So I suggest that that's not where the discussion should lead. We have to work with the fact that the outline permission has been granted, again, as officers have made very clear. A lot of councillor colleagues have mentioned over and over again the point about there not being a final investor. I personally find it very hard to see why exactly that is harmful or why it's unreasonable. It seems to me that it simply means we have a planning application with a delay associated with it. It doesn't mean anything other than that. And as councillors advocating for the area, the other way of looking at this is to say, let's bring forward an investor and try and accelerate things and make the best of what's on offer here. The only harm I can see from there not being an investor is that the airport is asked to vacate the site, but that, I think, is happening anyway, and that's been agreed already in the Section 106 agreement. And just to mention as well, the £2 million of spending on the site that has come through the West Midlands Combined Authority, if we don't give this the green light, there's a risk of something much worse happening for the village, because the people who've put that money in are at some stage going to say, we want a return on that investment, and there'll be pressure to accept a far worse planning application. And if that happens, the community in Baggington is going to say, what were the council representatives doing at the time? Why couldn't they think this through with greater clarity? So we have to make the best of what's been given outline permission, I would argue. Just to mention quickly the community in Baggington. I know one speaker has mentioned that, but to return to that so that they're not left out of this discussion. A lot of people in Baggington mentioned bread and butter issues, basic priorities such as the bus service, employment, getting a local shop back, and the quality of the services. There are as many people in the village interested in those basic things as who are interested in what happens on the industrial site around it. If we don't give the green light, we're going to lose the money in the Section 106 agreement that gives hundreds of thousands of pounds for buses and traffic mitigation in the village. So I would say it's best to approve this tonight, allow the employment benefits of the gigafactory to go forward, and take the money in the 106 agreement for the buses and move the village forward. I appreciate that there are many streets where there is a tranquil atmosphere and it's easy to disrupt that atmosphere, but we need to deal with that through mitigation. And that's where the hard slog comes in for the local councillors. We're not going to be able to see off every planning application around the village. There is going to be some churn in terms of land use because of the range of businesses operating around it. So if the community in Baggington is going to have a confident, secure and successful future, they're going to have to come to terms with the fact that there is going to be some development. The issue for the local councillors, and the question tonight is, do we make the best of that and move things forward with the right mitigation, or do we say no and open up a worse proposal? So I'm, in conclusion, asking you to support this application tonight and approve it. And I'm confident that if you look into the circumstances fully and with sensitivity, that's what you will do. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the speakers from outside. So it's now over to you, councillors. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for all the speakers for putting your points so clearly. I have two questions, please. One is several people have suggested that not having a currently having a delivery partner is something that should delay this application. Could we please have confirmation that this is not a material planning matter and therefore whatever we think about it, not relevant to our consideration of this application? The second question is about biodiversity net gain. I haven't seen in the report any comments on that. We are required, as I understand it, to show 10% biodiversity net gain in all applications. This clearly is about delivering a large amount of green infrastructure, and it's wonderful to see that coming in ahead of the development instead of being patched on at the end. So that's to be welcomed. But has there been an assessment of the likely biodiversity net gain as a result of this development? Thank you.
So I think on your first point, we'll probably take a legal view.
Chairman, I'm happy to assist with both points. On BNG, this was approved before we had mandatory BNG, so the 10% requirement doesn't apply. And no, the lack of an end user is not a material planning consideration. This wasn't a personal consent to a specific company or business, so no, it's not relevant.
Thank you for that. Could I just come back on the BNG? It seems to me to be an opportunity actually to do some sort of evaluation, because to demonstrate the benefits of all the green infrastructure going in. But clearly, if that's not required, it doesn't have to be done. But it would be interesting to know.
There are conditions on the outline planning permission that relate to biodiversity. It's not in connection with biodiversity net gain, because as Nigel said, it's the outline permission predates the BNG legislation, but it's evident from the landscaping proposals that have been put forward that there are significant opportunities for biodiversity benefits. The county ecologist was consulted on this reserve matters application and didn't raise any particular comments. So the overall officers are satisfied with it from a biodiversity point of view.
Thank you.
Councillor Yellow-Ricardo.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at page 20 and 23, which is regarding substation. I failed to see any transparent program for grid capacity upgrade versus the ramp up of the site demand. Hence, my question is, what is the phased power demand curve versus committed connections, and what contingency exists if upstream reinforcements slip? And will temporary generation be used like diesel and gas? If so, what are the emission limits and hours and noise controls? Thank you.
There's quite a bit of detail in there. I think from a planning perspective, this is a piece of electrical infrastructure that is required to come forward at an early stage of the development, because power is fundamental to the scheme. It's standard type infrastructure in terms of the switch station and the transformers sitting within a compound. So from a general planning point of view, it's a standard form of development. It has been considered from a noise perspective and found to be acceptable by the environmental protection team, and the applicant has confirmed that there's no intention to export electricity from this site. What would happen is that it's generated, or some energy will be generated on site, for example, from solar panels on the roofs of the buildings. It would then be stored on site and then used during peak periods of demand, but it wouldn't be then exported to the national grid.
Emissions,
Yeah, in terms of emissions, yeah, there's nothing to indicate that there will be any particular air quality issues from emissions associated with this. Again, environmental protection have considered this application in detail and have not raised emissions as a concern.
has noise been, would there be any noise concerns?
Yeah, we obtained a specific noise impact assessment just for the substation as part of this application, and that was assessed by environmental protection, and given the separation distances to the nearest houses, which are around 600 metres away, there's no specific noise issues with this substation, although it will be taken into account, any noise associated with it will be taken into account from a cumulative point of view, but that comes with the future application for the rest of the development, which covers operational noise from the whole site.
Thank you.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Councillor Bode. I'm not sure if my first point's a question or a comment. I'm probably directing it at Mr. Bell. We saw the agenda about 10 days ago. A couple of days later, by perhaps coincidence, perhaps not, we get an announcement of Coventry Airport closing. Did feel a little bit like inappropriate pressure coming from the Rigby group towards us. Is that a consideration that we're able to take into account at all? And I imagine it probably isn't, Mr. Bell, but I'd like you to confirm that.
Chairman, I don't believe it is. The operator can close the airport whenever they like.
Thank you. That was, I was assuming, the answer. Going back to something that I think it was Councillor Redford mentioned, this has got planning permission for a giga-battery factory, and only for that factory. So what happens if it never comes forward? This was taken out of the Green Belt, and it is therefore under exceptional circumstances, I believe. Are the proposals we're getting today effectively, therefore, what happens if the gigafactory never comes forward? And two, are the proposals we're looking at today irreversible if that gigafactory doesn't come forward, so the land cannot be put back into the Green Belt?
Through you, Chair. So the outline permission defines the permitted use of the site in terms of how it can be used, and also the Section 106 requires the council to agree to any future occupier to ensure that they are consistent with the approved use of the site. So that's as far as the outline permission extends to. So it's tightly controlled. It will be conjecture to get into what would happen if a user didn't come forward. In terms of the outline, it's very clearly defined, and the council has full control over that.
Would you say these proposals are irreversible, and irreversible damage to a green belt if it wasn't green belt?
It's the land's still within the green belt. It was found under the outline application that there were very special circumstances to justify development within the green belt, and that included setting down a set of parameters which I touched on in my presentation. So subject to the reserve matters coming forward in line with those parameters, then it is considered to be acceptable development in the green belt.
Okay, and the final question from me then, I think it was Mr. Clark mentioned that the building footprint on the latest drawings is different from that was approved 4 years ago or 3.5 years ago. Is that right? And how different is it, and what's the implication of that when we're looking at this proposal tonight?
Apart from the substation, the building footprints aren't part of this application. They're part of a further reserve matters application, which deals with the building, building layout, building design. The outline controls the maximum amount of floor space that can come forward or can be provided on this site. So that's essentially a question for the other reserve matters application. What we're considering here are just those enabling works.
Thank you.
Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is on the resident. Do we have any impact assessment done on young vulnerable children who have respiration issue?
So, Councillor, was that around respiration and health? Don't have any specific information on that. There is air quality is controlled on the outline planning permission. There is a condition around operational air quality. And that's being looked at through the other reserve matters application for the detailed design, because it relates to the operations on the site in terms of where the units are, mitigation measures, chimneys, things like that. So it's controlled through the outline. It's being considered through the other reserve matters application. And there's nothing within these enabling works that would give rise to any particular air quality, respiratory health concerns. I'll just add as well that any construction works are also controlled by a construction management plan, and that includes things like dust suppression and things like that. So there are controls in place around to mitigate the impact on the local community, and that includes health.
Through your chair, Mr. Chair. But when you look at the factory I'm looking at the pollution from the factory, with that, we have any impact on that, any assessment done?
That's the air quality condition on the outline.
Councillor Gifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if we could go to the very end slide with the main points on it. I think I've listened to what's been said with interest, and with a great deal of sympathy too, because I particularly felt for the operator of the aircraft maintenance. But we are where we are, and outline planning permission was granted in 2022, and sadly there isn't yet. When that was granted, I'd hoped that by this stage, building would be taking place of a gigafactory, because I think the country, certainly the region and the country, actually need that gigafactory. But we have got outline planning permission. I think it's worth, the reason I asked us to go to the main points is it's worth looking at what the reserved matters are, what we're actually deciding tonight. And I can't see any valid planning reasons for refusal. I can see reasons why this application should be granted. It's demolition of existing structures, the regrading of the land to form the future site levels, provision of strategic green infrastructure around the edges of the site. I'm glad to see that being done before the site is, before there's a user, before anything happens, we're putting in what's normally done right at the end. The creation of sustainable drainage features, the formation of a main spine road within the site, and the erection of a substation. The only building that we're looking at tonight is that substation, which, if the substation is there, that makes it a more attractive site for someone to have a gigafactory. And that's an issue that people have mentioned, the gigafactory, that hasn't got a user as yet. And I have to say, that is unfortunate, and I think it would be wonderful to see a user come forward. There's more chance of user coming forward if we grant the planning permission tonight than if we refuse it. But I also, as I say, I cannot see any valid planning reasons for refusal. And therefore, I would like to propose that we grant the application in line with the officer's recommendation. And that's a formal proposal.
Thanks. Proposal for Councillor Gifford. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kennedy.
I'll second that.
Yeah, including the updated conditions. Yeah. Anyone else want to say anything? Councillor Phelps.
Can I just get clarity? As the special circumstances were granted on the outline for a gigafactory, if the gigafactory does not arrive, does applications have to come back for change of use? Because, I want to be clear on that, because it was only granted for that special circumstances. So I want to make sure that if it doesn't happen, that we get a chance to look at it again.
Thank you, Councillor. The answer to your question is yes. What members are looking at this evening is part of the, if you like, the detailed jigsaw that's arising from the outline planning permission that has already been granted. There's been a number of concerns raised about what happens if. That's not really for this committee to consider this evening. As Councillor Gifford has explained, the sole matters before you this evening are these particular details, excuse me, of this, which is just one of several reserved matters that are coming forward. I hope that answers your question.
I'm going to take one more input from Councillor Phillips and I'll move to the vote.
Thank you. We heard about the location of the substation. Can you address the residents' concern about that substation being located where it is, or why would it not be located elsewhere, which is less risky? That's question one. And on the public access wood, if we can go to the map for a second, please. The blue part there. Why has that got no access to the public? That seems to be an ideal place to be able to ramble in the woods, if that is what it's going to be. And the third point is any minerals consideration here. Now we've got a new, it's not an approved minerals plan, because there's both sand and gravel at the one corner and it's building stone is within the Warwickshire County Council reserved areas for mineral safeguarding areas. Thanks.
So just picking those up probably in reverse order. So in terms of the minerals question, because this site already has outline permission, the issue of minerals isn't relevant to the reserve matters. We're just looking at scale, layout, appearance and landscaping of the site. So the blue area, which isn't publicly accessible, but there are levels issues within that part of the site. It forms a boundary with existing commercial development. So I think from a practical perspective and from a security perspective as well, there would be issues for the end user by allowing public access within there. That's the proposal that's come forward. The Green Space team hasn't raised any concerns with that not being publicly accessible. So overall officers are comfortable with that.
Location of the substation.
Location of the substation. Yeah, that's how it's come forward within this submission. Officers have assessed it in terms of its visual impact, in terms of residential amenity, and it doesn't give rise to any particular concerns. So that's how it would sit next to an area of the strategic landscaping, so it would be enclosed, and there would also be at some point some future development, some future built form in terms of the actual gigafactory itself. So it would sit within, it would always be viewed within the context of an industrial unit, essentially, so that would provide additional context to the substation. So that's the road, and as you can see, landscaping in between. It sits at a slightly lower level to the road as well. It's a good metre below the level of the road, so I think there is mitigation for it.
Okay, now presumably if a charity came forward that wanted to manage that site for natural growth, animals I'm talking about, then that could perhaps happen. It might actually be of benefit to it be done.
I hope the developers just look at it as a possible opportunity that at the moment isn't being considered, and provide some sort of green space or for rambling or whatever.
Okay. Now move to the vote. We've proposed by Councillor Gifford, second by Councillor Kennedy, including the notes in the additional observations. All those in favour, please show. That's 10. Anyone against? Abstentions? One abstention. That is clearly carried. Thank you. We now move on to W/25/0502, Coventry Airport, Rowley Road, Baggington. And that one is for the actual substation, I think. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, this is a standalone reserve matters application purely for the substation. Now, it's exactly the same substation that members have just considered within the previous application. Exactly the same location, exactly the same specification and design. The reason this standalone application has come forward is because the applicant wishes for full flexibility to enable them to provide this substation as a standalone piece of infrastructure without any connections to any other works on the site. So it's really just to isolate it from any other consents. So this is the substation. So as I said, it's exactly the same as the previous application. As part of this particular scheme, it has its own works to form its own access off an existing access road that's internal to the airport site, and then it would also have its own landscaping scheme provided around it. So that will be a grassed area. There'll be some changes to the levels within this part of the site, and the area will be grassed. So just to help it to be able to sit within a landscape setting until such time as other parts of the development come forward. So again, as per the previous application, these are the details of the substation. And this is just showing a section through this particular part of the site. So Orchard Way, that's been renamed Silver Eagle Way. So that's the road up there. You can see the substation being sat down, and there would essentially be a grassed embankment to the roadside as part of this proposal. So, as I said, it's the reserve matters in connection with the substation for the battery manufacturing facility. This has been submitted to facilitate the early provision of this part of the scheme. It's just scale, layout, appearance and landscaping for the substation that members are considering. Officers have assessed it in terms of noise and air quality, and it's been found to be acceptable. It's not considered that it would result in any significant harm to the character and appearance of the area, would not result in any unacceptable impact on residential amenity, and it's therefore recommended for approval.
Thank you. Again, I have a number of speakers. The first one is Councillor Walter Bush. You have 3 minutes.
We carry on really from the last planning application that we've just dealt with. Unfortunately, this has been a mess from the start. We have had two planning applications for this particular site, and yet we have a third one that's in process, which moves the substation totally elsewhere. So there's no real point in us arguing on this particular application. It is simply a carry-on from the previous one, which they're not going to take place anyway. So I'm not going to bother with talking about it. It makes a mess of the whole thing. The proposal is fundamentally inconsistent with the key principles of the local plan and the national planning policy. We're looking at a genuine plan-led situation, but we have not got a plan. We're looking at options past this one. The approved enabling works is committing public funds and residents to development that may change repeatedly. This is an example. It actually changed before we actually get to the planning meeting. The only other things that we can talk about really is highways and transport. One of the reasons that this site hasn't become forward in the way it was expected is that everybody that has looked at it has looked at the transport situation, listened and laughed and basically walked away from it because the road system and transport system proposed is not sustainable. The projected employment figures given for this site are 6,000, the same headline figures that were given for the original Gateway proposal. I think currently Gateway is sitting at 1,400 employees, so that makes a mockery of where this is going. The Gateway, the automation situation with battery plants is such that the quoted 6,000 jobs will never come about. Automation and AI will limit this capacity to less than 4,000. So these are stated items which affect the area. If we got 6,000 people on the site, the road system around it will fail dismally. Currently, the A45 is blocking up at peak times, and even with 3-shift working, we cannot get that volume of traffic through the road system around this area. The application does relocate the substation to elsewhere on the site, but again, there will be noise and fire and risk assessments that will come into play for that at a later date. I can't really add much more to this planning application until to say it's been a bit of a farce, really.
Thank you, extra time. Councillor Jim Roberts, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't add anything to Walter. He's looked at this in detail, but I would question, I've seen reports that this is a 30 megawatt potential transformer site. I have to ask, I don't know where the 30 megawatts came from, bearing in mind there isn't a firm client for this site. 30 megawatts is big. And if it also includes bringing cables from who knows where to bring that size of capacity to the site, I'm just wondering, why that number has been raised. And the next question is, this is a planning application. It's for preliminary works, and presumably it does not include the cost of transformers, which are not cheap and on long lead. So there's a question as to who is paying for those. Is it going to come out of the 23 million that the West Midlands Combined Authority has already allocated to this via the West Midlands Investment Zone? So questions rather than comments, Mr. Chairman. Apologies.
Thank you. Like I say, we won't enter into a debate with you. So. Noted. Thank you. Councillor Ben Edwards, you have 3 minutes.
I shouldn't need 3. 30 seconds I counted before we're starting to amend the previous plan. It's a substation. 30 MVA is actually a little bit small for a battery factory of the size that they're thinking. Really, you want about 60. So I'm not entirely sure why they're only applying for 30. Maybe that's something that you guys could ask. I believe the cables for it would probably have to come from Berkswell substation. That's where the 400 kilovolt lines actually come from, to give an idea of the scale from it. Where it's sited, Councillor Walter Bush put it very eloquently on the transport. There are also questions around how this fits into the wider site layout. Batteries, depending on the type of chemistry you use, some of them can go into thermal runaway. It's not unknown for them to release flammable gases, namely hydrogen. Is that location of the substation, which I assume will have switchgear, which one assumes will arc, is there a risk at that point of that interacting with a combustible gas from the facility? I don't know any of those. I don't know the answer to that. If this had come as a standalone application, or if the airport had asked to build a substation here, I don't think I'd even be having this conversation. It is because we're in the context of a battery factory that may or may not be built. Thank you.
Thank you. Now have Robert Barnes. You have another 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, again for the further opportunity to speak, and I'll similarly keep my comments on this application much briefer than previously. Again, it's important to reiterate that this is very simply an application asking you to approve the details of a substation, so effectively isolating one part of the development that you approved moments ago. The principle of this has already been agreed at outline stage. It's a highly standardised piece of infrastructure. There's nothing at all unusual about it. It's going to be located east of UK BIC and beyond the new link road, just south of Rowley Road. It's clearly a suitable location for a substation. The purpose of applying for the substation through its own reserve matters, as well as through the larger application you approved earlier, is simply to assist with early delivery and getting power to the site as soon as possible. Some concerns have been expressed around noise. You'll have seen that your Environmental Protection Officer has no concerns in that regard. The substation will be separated from the nearest houses by the New Link Road, by UK BIC, and by a distance well in excess of 600 metres. The submitted noise assessment that's been agreed by your Environmental Protection Officer shows that there would be no unacceptable impact on houses beyond a distance of about 10 metres from the substation. And as I said, it's not 10 metres, it's 600 metres that we're talking about. So this is an important but very straightforward proposal with no development impacts. Allowing it tonight will help to show that this is a site capable of securing power, making it more attractive to investment, and we hope very much you're able to approve it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And final speaker is Councillor Josh Payne. You have 5 minutes when you start.
Thank you, Chair. I don't really have anything further to add, but just to say that I concur with the comments made by the applicant's agent, and if there are issues that need ironing out with the electricity supply, I would suggest that that can be dealt with appropriately by involving expert engineers and academics so that the package as a whole can be approved. That's all I've got to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Members? Don't all rush at once. Councillor Hazelwood.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is my first meeting at Planning Committee, so I don't have the full appreciation of the history of this. However, tonight we've been asked to consider the proposal in front of us rather than to revisit the decision made in March 2022 or to speculate on what a future developer may or may not do in the future. On that basis, I can see no planning reason to reject the proposal.
Councillor. You can go first, don't worry.
I'm looking at page 5 and 6 where both the parish councils have objected and however WDC Health, Environmental Health has no objections. Now my question is there a enforceable amount of noise and how are you going to measure it, and is there a energized measurement? Are you going to measure the noise at certain level when it is operational? Thanks.
Environmental Protection haven't sought to impose any specific controls on the substation from a noise point of view, given the separation distance to neighbouring properties. It's not considered to be an issue. The noise report that was submitted clearly indicates that it would only be an issue if there was a dwelling within about 10 metres of the substation, and it's well in advance of that. So there's no reasonable grounds to seek to control noise from the substation. As I said under the previous application, operational noise from the whole site is controlled by condition, and that will pick up the substation and everything else as well.
Thank you.
I'm not sure whether Councillor Hazelwood made a proposal or was about to make a proposal. If he hasn't made a proposal, I would propose that we grant in line with the officer's recommendation. If he has made a proposal, I'm very happy to second it.
I'm happy to make the proposal.
Thank you, sir. Proposal by Councillor Hazelwood, seconded by Bill Gifford, that we grant in line with the updated conditions. All those in favour, please show. Same as last time. That is clearly carried with one abstention. Yeah. Sorry?
I want to abstain.
Yes.
Please.
We got you down as abstention. So that is clearly carried. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bode, is there a good time to break now before we start the next one?
Yeah, in fairness, we have quite a number of public speakers here, and I think we need to give them the courtesy of getting on. If you're quick, yes. Thank you for that unofficial break. We now move on to agenda item 5, W/24/1093, Leamington County Golf Course, Golf Lane, Whitnash. This is also a major application.
Thank you, Chairman. The application proposes two elements: the demolition of the existing former Greenskeepers storage building and the erection of a new 70-bedroom care home with associated works, including a new vehicular access to Golf Lane. The second aspect of the proposal is for the erection of an extension to the clubhouse to accommodate a new golf academy. The application has been triggered to be considered at Planning Committee due to the number of objections received. This slide shows the application site outlined in red. This red line includes a proposed golf club extension, which is located to the north. You can see just here. Alongside the clubhouse, with the existing vehicular access to Golf Lane, you can see just here to the north of the site. To the east of the existing former Greenskeepers building, you can see just here, with the new proposed access shown by the red line access just here onto Golf Lane. Residential properties lie to the north, which front Morris Drive, just along here, and to the east along Golf Lane. To the south and west of the red line areas lie the golf course and open land, in these areas here. Public right-of-way W118 runs along the eastern boundary of the site, connected to the countryside to the south, just in this location here. The site lies in the countryside, outside but adjacent to the urban area boundary, which runs along the northern boundary of the site here, and the far eastern part of the site just here. The site is identified within the neighbourhood plan as protected local green space, and the golf club is identified as a community facility. This slide shows an aerial image of the application site with the approximate location of the site outlined in red, just here. Golf Lane is visible to the east of the application site, just here, with the neighbouring properties to the east and to the north. To the south, you can see the wider golf course in this location, just here. This slide shows the proposed elevations of the Golf Academy extension, which will be connected to the existing clubhouse via a glazed link. The extension is simple in form, finished in brick with a flat roof and buff brick detailing to add interest. The extension will measure approximately 10.8 metres in width and 16 metres in depth, with a height of approximately 4.3 metres at its highest part. This slide shows proposed floor plans of the extension to the clubhouse and the 3 rooms that are proposed for the simulators. This slide shows the proposed site plan for the care home. This shows a new vehicular access and pedestrian access routes along the top of the plan to Golf Lane, you can see just here. A new car parking area is proposed just here to the north of the application site, next to the new vehicular access, with a new bin storage area, substation building, and storage area for air source heat pumps and for bicycle storage just to the north of the building. The main building is set around 2 main wings, which are rectangular in form and extend across the remainder of the site. You can see just here. Shared gardens are proposed around the building, and a new drainage pond is proposed to the southern part of the application site, just here. This slide shows the proposed elevations for the southern wing of the care home, which will be simple in form with a mansard roof, buff bricks and render finish. The building includes a staggered elevation with parts of the building set back from the main elevation. The accommodation is proposed over 4 levels, with the tallest part within the centre of the site, and the top elevation here is a road-facing elevation. This slide shows the remainder of the elevations for the proposed building. The entrance to the building is visible just here, with the flat roof single-storey element. This slide shows the proposed elevations of the development compared to the superseded elevations which are along the bottom of the slide, to show the changes that have been updated as part of the most recent amendments to the scheme. The key changes include changes from the buff brown brick and white brick to include a mansard roof, buff brick and render. So those are the key changes as part of that last revision. This slide shows the proposed lower ground floor and ground floor plans for the development. The lower ground floor includes a service wing for staff with kitchen and laundry areas and office. These are shown in pink, you can see just here. The ground floor also has a main entrance which connects through to the entrance lobby and the cafe and the terrace to the rear, you can see in just the central part here of the building. Bedrooms and communal areas, including lounges and a cinema room, are available close to the bedrooms. The bedrooms are shown in green. On the ground floor, we have 24 new bedrooms, and at the lower ground floor, 12 bedrooms are proposed. All the bedrooms are en-suite. This slide shows the first and second floor levels, with 24 bedrooms at first floor level, with communal areas including a salon and a spa, At second floor level, a further 10 bedrooms are proposed, along with the communal spaces. The upper floors will have access to a shared terrace area which faces toward the golf course, which is in the centre of the building just here and here. This slide shows the proposed sections of the care home. The land is set into the existing slope of the site as the land rises west away from Golf Lane. See, Golf Lane is just here, and the land sloping up. The new building will be set at staggered distances from the road, and the change in levels across the site is approximately 2.5 metres. A new retaining wall is required to the front and to the rear of the site to facilitate the development, which you can see just here and to the front. This slide shows a number of photographs taken from the car park looking towards a new extension. The left image was taken looking south. The existing clubhouse is visible just here and trees to the front. The top right image was taken looking west across the site, and the final photograph was taken from the car park area looking across the site with the golf building just here. This slide shows photographs across the existing car park. The entrance to Golf Lane is visible just here at the back of the photograph, and the right image is looking back through the car park towards the golf building, which you can see just here. This slide shows a number of photographs of the street scene around Golf Lane. The top left was taken looking in the north direction along Golf Lane, just beyond Morris Drive. The central photograph is looking back towards the golf club entrance with Morris Drive just here on the right, and the top right was looking up Morris Drive just to get an idea of the street scene and the character of the area. The bottom photograph was taken looking along Golf Lane with the application site for the golf entrance just here. The central one was looking back from the public right-of-way with the application site just to the left of the image and Golf Lane in the centre. And the final photograph was taken from Golf Lane with the application site just on the right. This slide shows a couple of further photographs taken from the immediate vicinity. The first is taken from the public right-of-way with the application site just to the left. Top right is taken from the public right-of-way with the application site to the left. And the final photograph was taken from Fieldgate Lane looking back towards the application site. So Golf Lane's just here, and this is the application site just here. These photographs have been taken from the application site. The top left was taken looking from the Greenskeepers building, looking across the site. You can see just here. The bottom left was taken from the same position, panning around towards the golf club building. You can see just here. The top photograph, right photograph, was taken looking back towards the Greenkeepers building just here, with the application site for the care home on the right-hand side. You can see the properties along Golf Lane in the background of the photograph. And the bottom right was panning around in the car park, looking across the site. You can see the vegetation and the golf building is just behind. So these photographs were taken looking in the opposite direction. You can see the frontage boundary treatment, which is along Golf Lane. The top right was taken looking across the putting green, and you can see the buildings across in the background, which are neighbouring properties. The bottom left was taken looking across the application site. You can see the vegetation to the right, which fronts the road, and the existing drainage, storage units just here. And the final photograph is looking back, panning across the site. You've got the vegetation just here, and the golf building is just here. You can see the car parking in the centre of the image. Planning permission is sought for two elements: a new care home and the erection of an extension to the existing clubhouse. The site lies in a sustainable location, and on balance, the provision of the care home is supported in this location, having regard to policy H5, and the extension of the golf clubhouse is supported by policy HS5. There is harm identified in the form of the loss of the recreation space and harm to the openness of the local green space and harm to the character of the area and street scene. There are a number of benefits associated with the development, including the enabling funds this proposal will secure for the golf club and the contribution towards the council's 5-year housing and land supply. Whilst it recognised there will be harm to the openness of the local green space and character of the area, when viewed cumulatively, the benefits are considered to amount to very special circumstances which are unique and site-specific, which clearly outweigh the harm having regard to the policies identified. And subject to a legal agreement conditions, officers consider these benefits can be secured to outweigh the harm. It is therefore recommended that the application be granted on this basis. There are a number of updates which have been circulated on the update sheet, which includes an updated approved plans condition. There's also a verbal update, and a further condition is recommended to restrict the use to a C2 care home just for the avoidance of doubt, as this is what officers assess the application on. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a number of speakers. And we'll start off with Mr. Andrew Watkins, objector. You have 3 minutes when you start.
Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I wish to raise a number of planning concerns based on the contents of the officer's report. Local green space designation Whitnash NDP policy W7. The site lies within a designated local green space under the Whitnash Neighbourhood Development Plan. The officer's report acknowledges that the proposal will result in the harm to the open character of the area and is not supported by the policy W7. Rather than in very special circumstances. Paragraph 153 of the NPPF requires that such harm be given substantial weight. The Council's independent consultant notes that the golf club is highly unlikely to fail financially in the next few years. This suggests that justification offered may not meet the high threshold for very special circumstances. Development of the countryside, NDP policy W8. The report further recognises that the scheme conflicts with policy W8, which protects the open countryside south of Whitnash, prevents settlements merging. While it is appreciated that the proposed aims to support a value community facility, the introduction of a large four-storey building outside the urban boundary would inevitably change the area's rural character. Landscape and design impact, and there's several policies on that. The care home is effectively 4 stories high, including a lower ground level. Warwickshire County Council's landscape expressed concerns about the mass and scale of the care home, and officers agreed that it fails to harmonise with the rural character of the area. More than 25 trees and sections of mature hedgerow will be removed, making the building highly visible from Golf Lane. It is also important to note that the design has materially changed on November 24, altering the red brick to white render and from buff brick on the upper storey to a grey mansard roof. This results in the building that is substantially different appearance from the version the public and consultees first reviewed. Need and sustainability, local plan policy H5. While it is accepted that the care accommodation forms part of meeting an ageing population's needs, and I'm one of them, the report records that Warwickshire County Council Care Home Commissioning identified the local market as saturated and that the scheme is aimed at self-funders rather than affordable provision. The site also lies outside a sustainable location with limited public transport and few nearby facilities contrary to H5. Highways and local amenity policies, TR1, TR2. Both Whitnash Town Council and local residents may have raised concerns about traffic congestion, school run safety and on-street parking along Golf Lane.
Thank you. Your time's up.
All right. Okay.
3 minutes.
Can I just do my conclusion since I've got...
No, so I then have to give them all this extra time as well.
All right, okay. All right.
We got your message. I call on Louise Steele. You have 3 minutes when you start.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm from Frampton's Town Planning, acting on behalf of the applicant. As the officer's report points out, the neighbourhood plan designates the site as a local green space and that very special circumstances need to be demonstrated to outweigh any harm to this open space. The proposed care home will provide crucial enabling funds to protect the long-term future of the club, allowing the club to make vital and significant investments, including, for example, to their water storage and drainage systems. Meanwhile, the Golf Academy will provide state-of-the-art indoor teaching and practice facilities and provide a crucial new income stream. Without the realisation of capital from the sale of a small parcel of land for development, the financial trajectory of the club is facing terminal decline. An independent consultant appointed by the council has confirmed that the enabling funds are the only realistic means of funding the works, and that the club's financial projections and investment plans are realistic. It is also important to recognise that the care home itself will help meet local demand for high-quality residential nursing and dementia care in a purpose-built setting. Of note, there are no objections from the Highways Authority, Public Rights of Way Officer, or from the local leaflet authority. There are no objections from the Ecology or Tree officers, and the Landscape officer has no objection in principle. There is mature roadside landscaping on the site's frontage, which will help mitigate the visual impact of the proposals. Officers have worked proactively with us to minimise the visual impact of the scheme. This has resulted in the applicant amending the roof design to incorporate a mansard, and officers have also pushed us to enhance the landscaping proposals at the site. Over 30 trees and numerous shrubs and hedges will be planted. As the officers' report correctly summarises, there is some identified harms with regard to the openness of the local green space and character of the area. This is to be expected for development. This needs to be weighed in the planning balance against the significant benefits of the proposals. There are numerous benefits associated with the proposals, including among others, the enabling funds as the only realistic means to funding the works, the survival of and the improvements to the club as a sports and recreational facility, the provision of a 70-bed care home which will contribute to the council's 5-year housing land supply, economic benefits, and the development will partially use the previously developed land. When viewed cumulatively, the benefits are considered to amount to very special circumstances which clearly outweigh the harm. I respectfully request that the committee members endorse the officer's positive recommendation and approve the planning application.
Thank you. I'll call on Nadia Khan Juhal. You have 3 minutes too.
Good evening, Chair, members, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nadir, Development Director for the applicant Morrison Community Care Group. We've been in the care sector for over 30 years. We originally started as care home operators. However, over the last 8 years, we have changed our business to develop purpose-built care homes. We've completed 10 homes to date, and we're currently building 9 new homes across England and Scotland. With an ageing population, a lack of family carers, and an overstretched NHS, demand has never been greater for modern, purpose-built care facilities. Our years of operational experience have given us the expertise to develop new care homes, focusing on design, technology, and sustainability. As a minimum, we aim to achieve an EPC rating of A and BREEAM rating of very good. This ensures our care homes are designed to be sustainable and efficient to run. So why do we need care homes? The number of people aged over 80 in the UK is forecast to increase by 1.1 million between 2025 and 2032, rising to 4.5 million. With life expectancy no longer increasing, the ratio of over 80s to care home beds is a good proxy for demand and indicates the need for an additional 144,000 care beds over the next 10 years, or 14,400 new beds per annum, which is just to keep pace with the population growth across the UK. Our demographic analysis shows that there is approximately 20,000 people aged over 65 within 5 kilometres of the catchment of this site. The elderly population within the catchment is anticipated to grow by nearly 19% over the next 10 years. As of 2024, there was demand for 649 elderly care beds in the 5-kilometre catchment, which is forecast to increase to 852 by 2034. The market shortfall is anticipated to grow as the proportion of elderly residents in acute care needs grow. In terms of specialist dementia need, there's limited dedicated dementia provision within the catchment, and our analysis identifies a shortfall of 417 dementia units. The proposed care home is designed to provide residential nursing and dementia care. Further, it will provide respite care and look to engage with local community, hosting school children, charity groups and mum and toddler groups. The proposed care home will help alleviate the pressure on the NHS by reducing bed blocking. The home will release housing stock back into the market, particularly relevant during a housing crisis. And finally, residents staying in the home will receive a level of care which will reduce appointment take-up in local GP practices. During the construction phase, local contractors, suppliers and building merchants will be used to build the care home, bringing significant economic benefits, as well as create jobs to include apprenticeships for youths. Once the care home is complete, it will provide over 80 jobs, and local companies that support the operation of the care home will also benefit, such as food and laundry suppliers. In closing, we've been working with your colleagues in the planning department since August 24 to create what will be an exemplar care home. There are no statutory consultee objections, and it is recommended for approval following a proactive consultation period. Thank you.
Thank you. I nearly shut you down. Thank you. I have Pat Callahan.
I'm Pat Callahan. I'm the current chair of Leamington County Golf Club. It has already been confirmed that this is an enabling application. Put simply, the only reason the club has taken the decision to sell this unused parcel of land, representing less than 1% of the total, is because we have no alternative in order to raise the funds we need to ensure the survival of the golf club. Again, for clarity, this is not a windfall gain, but a vital lifeline to enable us to invest in additional income streams to secure our future. Both the projections in terms of our current financial plight and that the land sale offers the only viable option available to ensure our long-term survival have been fully validated by the independent assessor appointed by the council. Generated funds will be used to provide income through the construction of a new golf academy with modern teaching, practice and virtual playing facilities. This will be open not only to members, but also the wider public and those wishing to get into golf, including schools, local community groups and the disabled. The club intends, subject to separate planning permission, to convert an empty farmhouse within the grounds into one-bedroom apartments for rental occupancy. The club fully recognises and enthusiastically supports the need to be environmentally sustainable. The construction of our own water collection and storage facility will fulfil coarse watering needs and negate reliance on metered water supply, especially during times of drought. This water reservoir and its surrounds will provide genuine and much needed benefits to the local ecology and to wildlife preservation. Buggy paths will be significantly extended to guarantee year-round access to those unable to walk the course. We're extremely proud to have been an integral part of Whitnash and Leamington Spa for 117 years. The club is highlighted in the Whitnash Neighbourhood Plan as special to the local community and of historical value to Whitnash and Leamington Spa. We have around 750 members, the vast majority being local residents, including 160 non-golfing social members. For many, this represents their only or main recreational activity, and also a vital focal point for social interaction. Its loss would be sorely felt. Whitnash Town Council unanimously gave their support to the application, stating that their designation of the area as green space was always intended to protect its future and never as a potential obstacle to its survival. I strongly urge this council to support our determination to sustain this much needed and much loved local amenity. Thank you for your time.
That was very good timing, I have to say. Thank you, well done. I call on Councillor Robert Margrave. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I won't need 5 minutes. I speak as a Whitnash member of Warwick District Council, and for the record, I'm also a social member of the Golf Club, hence why I'm not on the committee this evening. I would encourage members to agree with the officer's recommendations to support the application for the reasons set out in the report. I don't have too much to add. I'm probably going to reiterate some of the things that have already been said by previous speakers. This application will help secure the long-term viability of the club and will protect the green space that it occupies. The aim of policies W7 and 8 in the Whitnash Neighbourhood Plan are to protect the green spaces of our town, some of which are occupied by the club, and this plan does just that. Policy W7 says very special circumstances are needed, and as you've heard, these have been met. The loss of land is small, and part of it is already concrete anyway. Policy W8 is about ensuring that Whitnash doesn't merge into other towns and villages by protecting the open space. With the proposed South Warwickshire local plan seemingly aiming to fill the green space between the Foss Way and the golf club with yet more houses, the future of the club is essential. W8 also talks about the loss of facilities on site needing to be replaced. This development does not lose any facilities on site. Indeed, they are enhanced. Without this small development, the green space does then become at risk if the club were to close in future years, however many years in the future that may be. You will have read this plan and heard that it is supported by Whitnash Town Council. So once again, I recommend supporting officers' recommendations to approve this application to secure the long-term viability and future of the club and to protect the vital green space in our town.
Thank you. Over to members. It's unusual because it is an enabling development. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Councillor Bode. Could I quick look at the photograph of the entrance to the golf club? There is a building there, just to the left. What is happening with that? I caught it in one of the photos. Yes, that's it there.
This building's coming down as part of the works. That's the Greenkeeper's storage building.
Okay, thank you. More relevant, we've got various bits and pieces of local plans interacting here. Just like some advice, please, about what we should give the most weight to. We've got in the Whitnash Neighbourhood Development Plan, Objective 6 about local green spaces, but that plan is now 10 years old and has been superseded, may not be quite the right word, but I think that's where I'm going, by the Warwick District Council local plan, and we've got policy HS3 on open green spaces in that. But has that now been superseded by the need for 5-year housing land supply as set out in the report? Which one should we give most weight to?
So in terms of the development plan, yes, there is the neighbourhood plan, which was adopted before the local plan. So more weight we give that to the local plan when we're looking at the weighting. Then we've got the net zero carbon DBD. So when we're looking at it as a whole, when we're looking at it in this case, we've then got the tilted balance from the MPPF. So we're looking at how consistent the policies are to the MPPF when we're looking at the weighting. So in this case, in terms of the local green space, the neighbourhood plan and the local plan are consistent with the MPPF. We would treat it almost akin to Greenbelt, where we're looking at very special circumstances. So the local plan policy is in accordance with the MPPF, how that assesses this local green space that's been identified. So when we're looking at it in the tilted balance as a whole, it is a protected space. We do need to then have a look at it and see, are there any very special circumstances? And that's what we've looked at in this case as officers. So in terms of the planning balance, we're looking at it as a whole, and will the benefits outweigh the harm? But we're also looking for very special circumstances for local green space, which officers consider have been met in this case, subject to a legal agreement and conditions. And that's how we need to weigh it when we're looking at the overall assessment.
Okay, thank you. And the 5-year or the lack of 5-year housing land supply, how does that impact?
So in terms of the tilted balance, where we're looking at this decision, we'd be looking at in line with the tilted balance. So where there are areas that are protected areas, the local green space is a protected area, so we'd be giving more weight to that. So we'd be weighing it up in the normal way in terms of are there reasons to refuse it on that ground. So we're looking for very special circumstances. In terms of the tilted balance, we're looking at are there any benefits and do they clearly, do they outweigh the harm? So in this case, that's what we're looking at in terms of very special circumstances for local green space. And then when we're looking at the scheme as a whole, we're looking at in the overall balance, what the benefits are and if they can significantly and demonstrably outweigh the harm identified. So that's the test that we're looking at.
And that applies to the lack of 5-year housing land supply?
Yeah, so that's taking into account the fact we don't have a 5-year housing land supply, so the tilted balance and the MPPF is engaged.
Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I think you might have half answered at least one of my questions, which is, will this care facility will the beds there count towards our 5-year housing land supply or not? Will that add 70 numbers to it?
It will contribute, and that's a benefit of the scheme that we've considered.
Okay, thank you. My second question, if I may, is around the enabling nature of it. Is the long-term sustainability of the golf club as a going concern, is that a consideration in this planning decision? Is this something that we need to look at for the planning?
So in terms of looking at the benefits of the scheme, the enabling works, we have had it independently assessed by a golf specialist as part of the ongoing consultation. So it is identified that if the club doesn't act in a proactive way, there's a major mid to long-term risk of long-term decline of the club. So that's a consideration. So we've weighed that, and the consultant has given weighting to the various infrastructure projects that are being proposed as part of what the enabling works would go towards effectively. And we've had regard to that as officers. So when we're looking at the overall benefits of the scheme, we've weighed it in, and it's substantial weight. So whilst we give substantial weight to local green spaces and the harm that's been identified, similar to Greenbelt policy, in this case, based on the consultant's response and everything we've considered in terms of the benefits, we think that would be substantial as well. So when we're looking at it, we think that's very special circumstances.
And if I may, thank you for that. One further question is around the applicant mentioned that the facility would be built to EPC-A standards and BREEAM very good. But it will also, as I understand, fulfill the requirements of our net zero carbon DPD. Can you just comment on how those, if they are related, EPC-A, BREEAM very good, and our requirements for the net zero carbon DPD?
So as part of it, you would need to meet the BREEAM standards, and that's been secured by condition. They're also having to meet the requirements of the DPD as well, so that's conditioned in terms of the energy statement. We've also got a condition for NZC3, which is a separate standalone condition, and the legal agreement will be securing carbon offsetting contributions as well, so that's all covered in the report and secured as part of the legal agreement and the conditions that are proposed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Hazelwood.
I've got two questions. So I note in the report that there are numerous highway safety and car parking concerns raised as objections. I note on page 26 of the report that Warwickshire County Council Highways Authority are satisfied with the proposal. But can you confirm that the various references given in that assurance to the NPPF fully address the concerns being raised? And also, I do note that there's a long list of conditions to the recommendation. And does that suggest that the application is substantially incomplete?
So in terms of the highways matters, we have had it considered by the Highways Authority. They've got no objections subject to conditions in this case, and they've had full regard to the information that's been submitted. From a parking perspective, we're satisfied as officers that sufficient parking on site for the care home in line with our parking standards. And given the nature of what's proposed for the extension, no further parking is required in that respect. I think there were some comments about on-street parking. These show a couple of photographs of my site visit. I appreciate it's not at school time, but the transport statement does talk about peak visitor times likely to be 10 till 12 and 2 till 4, and at the weekends for visitors to the care home. In terms of so from a highways perspective, subject to conditions, that's acceptable by the Highways Authority. In terms of the number of conditions that are proposed, given the scale of the development, a lot of the conditions are either recommended by technical consultees or standard conditions. We do have things like levels in there and lighting, given the siting of where the application site is, and the levels because of the changing nature of ground levels across the site. So there are more than a standard flat site we would have, for example, in a different location, but not beyond what we'd normally expect with this scale of scheme.
Councillor Yellow-Pradhan.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding is that reserved matter locks in earthworks, bonds, sods, and also substation location, which may predetermine future mitigation or layout flexibility. My question is, if later technical review demands different bond profiles or routing or barriers, will the developer fund any reworks to enable the works?
So what we have here is a full planning application. So all the details are provided at this stage. So this is the layout. This is where the substation will be in the enclosures and the waste storage. And we've assessed the landscaping. Whilst we put a landscaping condition on, we're satisfied that it's just to secure further details at that stage. So from our perspective, it's a full application. All the details are up front as part of this proposal of works.
Yep. Thank you.
Councillor Fowler.
Can I have some clarification about the, because there's extensive drainage conditions, and did I hear that they're going to actually use some of the runoff from the care home to make it sustainable on the golf course?
That's correct. And there have been a number of amendments through the course of the application to address the drainage. So in principle, the lead local flood authority has got a no objection subject to the conditions coming forward to provide that final detail, and that's not uncommon with a scheme of this size.
Can I come back about as well about the hedges and the trees, which are quite substantial down there? And again, I think it's covered by conditions.
That's correct. So there will be some tree removal. The main tree here in the hedgerow along the frontage of Golf Lane will be retained. There will be trees removed from this part of the site here and from where the new extension will be to the clubhouse. Got no objection from the tree officer, and officers are satisfied that subject to a suitable landscaping condition, and we've got a landscaping strategy that's come forward as part of this scheme, but we're asking for extra details and that would be acceptable from a visual impact perspective.
Next. Proposal. Councillor Kennedy.
I would like to propose that we approve this, we grant this application in line with officers' recommendations.
Councillor Russell.
I agree. I'd like to second the proposal.
Okay, we else want to speak before we move to the vote? Well, that includes the updated, which is what you said, I think. Yeah. Okay, all those in favour, please show. That's clearly carried unanimously. Yep, unanimously, I believe. Clearly carried. Thank you. Now move on to item 10, which is W/25/1125. Kenilworth Tennis and Squash Club, Crackley Lane, Kenilworth.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So, councillors, this application relates, as you'll see, to the Kenilworth Tennis and Squash Club out on Crackley Lane near Kenilworth, and essentially proposes a series of changes. The key elements of the proposals are the provision of 2 additional padel courts in place of, well, there's 2 existing tennis courts, but one of those tennis courts is to be retained. And then the other probably key aspect of the proposal is additions to a raised seating area adjacent to the clubhouse at the site. So the slide in front of you identifies the wider application site in blue and the specific areas of the site, the subject of this application, in red. And an aerial photograph identifying, again, the application site, and just annotated there just to give members a sense of the separation distances between the application site and the nearest residential dwellings. So this is an existing site layout. I draw members' particular attention to this area here, which is, that shows the two existing tennis courts. Those are to be replaced, and we'll come on to a proposed slide in a moment. And I'd also draw your attention to the location of the clubhouse here. It's this area here that is the existing raised seated area. And again, there's a slide in a moment which will show how that is proposed to be changed. But first of all, some photographs of the site. Here we are looking at the 4 existing padel courts within the site, and photographs just around the site, again indicating the padel courts. Just let me go back up. So back onto this one. The proposal, you can't see it, but it is just off the edge of this photograph, the site of the new padel courts. So again, back to these slides, which just indicate, I'll just show a number of photographs around the site. Generally, at the top left-hand slide, indicating, again, the existing padel courts, and just to give members a sense of how they appear, the boundary treatment that exists and is identical to what is currently proposed, along with the floodlights, which will be replicated as part of the application, and also some shots showing the existing tennis courts, the main car park, the middle photograph at the top, and then the overflow car park, the middle photograph towards the bottom. And these slides are to indicate the clubhouse at the site. I'd ask members to particularly look at the photograph sort of bottom middle, which is just showing the existing situation with that raised seating area, which leads out from the clubhouse itself. So again, that's just the existing site plan. And then if we move on to the proposed site plan, and if I just scroll back up, so we've got the 2 existing tennis courts here. They are to be replaced by 2 new padel courts and the various infrastructure that comes with that set out in the report. And then 1 tennis court is to be retained, but as you can see, it's moved around 90 degrees just so that it can be retained within the remainder of that space. What I'd also point out to members here is the proposals to extend that seated area, and I'd also just highlight these areas of landscaping, particularly this one here down the side of the clubhouse, which is referred to in the report. This slide is just, again, helping to illustrate, hopefully, the extension that's proposed to this external seating area. The red coloured area there is the existing, obviously the darker coloured area is what is proposed to extend that raised platform. And then this is just the view from the end looking towards the clubhouse and the extended raised platform. This is a version of the slide that we looked at a moment ago, mainly just intended to highlight the extent of the proposed floodlights, which again are described in the report, and you'll have seen the existing floodlights in the previous photographs, which are proposed to be replicated. And then just some elevational drawings just to show the new courts within the context of the existing courts, and also the raised area proposed to be extended. So that is this area here. As you might notice, that photograph is taken looking in that direction. This photograph looking up through the proposed padel courts, which are these here. also showing the new or the adjusted tennis court and then the other existing tennis courts here. And then again, just slides looking at those aspects of the development from the other angles that hopefully you can see there. So, summary of the main points. As you'll know from your report, the proposals are considered to be acceptable. We officers consider them to be appropriate development within the green belt. We don't believe that there is any significant harmful impact, and the view is that there's no highway safety or parking issues arising. And the recommendation, Chair, is therefore to approve.
Thank you. I have one speaker, I think. No, I don't. Or do I? Yes. Kenilworth Town Council, you have 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chair, and I think I can be succinct on this. I'm representing Kenilworth Town Council here tonight, and they object to this application and wish to support Kenilworth residents in the objections that they've made. On a personal level, as a town councillor, I've had a lot of contact about this with many comments made about unacceptable noise levels from the existing paddle courts, and residents are stressing to me that they think it's therefore going to be very problematic indeed to have any extension to those. I don't think it's the right place to be taking land for development out of the green belt, because just to say to committee, traditionally this is a very tranquil area of Kenilworth. It's next to Crackley Woods and the heritage asset of Parliament Peace. It's very popular with walkers. It's an unusually peaceful area of Kenilworth, and I think it should be kept that way. I think it's important to protect this side of the town from inappropriate development, because at the opposite end of Kenilworth there has been an enormous amount of new house building with the recent Thickthorn development and Stoneleigh View. So again, I think on balance it's appropriate to keep this this part of the town as a tranquil environment for walkers. There's also a broader point about diversity of sport and the fact that we're losing tennis provision, and residents have raised with me loss of tennis coaching jobs if this were to go ahead. On balance, I'm asking you please to refuse permission and require that the applicant in the circumstances comes back having done much more work on noise and light pollution to create a more appropriate application. Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Sorry. How far is it from the actual residential area, like nearest house? How far is it? One. And the second one is, it's fairly 150 meters. 150 meters, yes. Okay. I don't know. Paddle court is loud. Have we got any data as to how loud it can be from other places where paddle courts are? Then that would be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, for your question. So, yeah, just to clarify, what this slide is intended to show is the distances to the nearest properties, 125 metres to the properties to the north along Crackley Lane, and 150 metres to the properties on Coventry Road, broadly to the south. I think in terms of the noise impact, you might have seen in the report that the environmental health team have been very active in looking at this planning application, and have actually previously responded to concerns about noise from the existing padel courts at the site. And again, as you might see in the report, the assessment that they'd come to, and I think they'd undertaken visits to different properties on various various different times of days, and they had also double-checked that padel was being played on the site at the time, and their conclusion was that there was no discernible difference between the use of the padel courts and the use of the tennis courts. So the advice that we've had as planning officers from the environmental health team is that there is no evidence to suggest that there is a noise-related issue in this particular case. And that will in part be because of the distance separation between the site and the nearby neighbouring properties.
Yeah, the other thing is, what are the timings of paddle court? When does it operate? The timings of it. The other question, follow-up question, is about the floodlights. In winter, they will be on from 4 o'clock, I guess. But what are the operating times for the floodlights and also of the paddle courts, please?
Thank you again, Councillor. If you look at the final page of the update report, just let me check I'm looking at the right bit. Yeah, okay. Yes, if you look at the final page of the update report, it clarifies the situation relating to the hours of operation. And so it talks about the times that courts can be booked, courts more widely can be booked from 7 o'clock in the morning until 10 p.m. at night. That's the tennis courts. Squash courts between 6 a.m. and 10:55. And the padel courts can be booked between 6 a.m. and with the latest finish time of 10:30 p.m. And the very last paragraph there talks about the padel floodlights being linked to the booking system, and therefore the lights are only activated. Well, first of all, when the lighting conditions mean that you need the lights to be operated, and also when the courts are in use. So what that will mean is that it's not possible for the floodlights to be used when there isn't anybody playing on the courts. And I think if you, in terms of the effect of the lighting more generally, which clearly, can be a concern in this sort of location, I think you'll note that there is a condition proposed which is seeking further details of the lighting and the way that they will be, the way that the light, the surrounding area will be protected from glare using cowl fittings, which is what we often see in these sort of scenarios. And so that condition requires additional information to be provided. And that's purely about ensuring that the light is directed where it needs to go so that it doesn't have that wider impact in the surrounding area.
More like a column light, so it doesn't affect nocturnal birds.
That's right. So the light would be focused onto the courts, and I think there's a lot of kind of technology I guess used in ensuring that the extent of spillage of light is kept to an absolute minimum.
Yeah. Is there a possibility of putting in a condition to reduce the hours? 10:30 in the night is very late. I mean, there are residential houses over there. Is there a possibility to reduce the hours?
What I've described to you, Councillor, is the situation as it exists at the moment. There isn't any planning control over the hours of use, and that's because it's a club that's existed historically for many, many years. And so there isn't anything in a planning permission that controls the hours of use. So the question would be whether that would be considered reasonable given that what we're proposing here is 2 additional padel courts over and above the existing 4 courts, which are replacing existing court space, i.e. in place of a tennis court, in the scenario where our environmental health colleagues are telling us that there isn't any significant noise impact, and in the scenario where we have this condition around the lighting, which is specifically proposed to ensure that the lighting is directed, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. So my view as the officer would be that probably wouldn't be reasonable in that set of circumstances. But that's a matter for members to consider.
Just to clarify, the control reduction of timings is only for paddle court, not for the whole of tennis courts.
Sorry, could you say that again?
I was just saying the reduction of the timing is only for the paddle court. I was just trying to clarify, not for the whole of...
Yeah, I understand. I think if you like, the challenge would be, given the situation where there are other courts at the site that can be used for the existing times, given that the advice that we're getting from the environmental health officer is that there isn't likely to be any noise impact, and given the care that will be taken in ensuring that the light is focused on the courts rather than everywhere else, I suppose the challenge back would be, in planning terms, would that be reasonable? And if my learned legal colleague at the end of the table might like to comment on that, I'd be very grateful.
Chairman, I support what Gary says, that if you imposed a time condition, it would apply to these 2 new courts. The rest of the club, they can play tennis 24/7 and squash 24/7. And given it's replacing 2 existing tennis courts where there aren't any time restrictions, I'm not sure it would meet the conditions test. And finally, obviously environmental health colleagues have not said there's an issue with noise, so I don't think we can justify an hour's condition.
That's okay, I understand. Thank you. Thank you both.
Councillor Phillips.
Well, I'm going to continue on this theme because I'm going to respectfully disagree with Mr Fisher and Mr Bell here. 6 or 8 months ago, we saw Warwick Boat Club come forward with a temporary request for paddle courts. And that was a retrospective for them. Can I clarify, first of all, is this a retrospective for the Kenilworth club? So the paddle court's already been put in, and they're now doing this as retrospective. I'm just trying to understand what the timeline of events is.
Sorry, Councillor, could you just repeat the last part of your question?
Effectively, those paddle courts seem to be in existence already. Have we seen this before as a planning committee?
In this case, the paddle courts are not in situ. The development hasn't taken place yet.
So the photographs we were seeing were AI-generated type photographs?
Yeah.
Which confuses us. So there isn't any...
However, even if it were retrospective, which it's not in terms of
it's
the
not a
paddle
relevant
courts,
matter, but I'm just trying to understand.
members would be considering it in exactly the same way as if it wasn't.
So so how has the environmental health officer assessed the noise if there are no paddle courts in place from the nearby?
There are 4 existing paddle courts at the site,
So
and this proposal is to add a further 2.
That was my question. Have those 4 had previous planning permission?
Yes.
They have?
Yes.
Right, thank you. That was where I was getting very confused. So we're now going to have 6 paddle courts here.
That's the proposal,
so
yes.
it's 4 plus 2.
Yeah.
Right. We are not being consistent with what we did with Warwick Boat Club, where we insisted that they had an 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. for paddle courts. And the environmental health officer on that application also said noise was not a factor except at the bottom of the gardens. Here we're saying noise is not a factor, but we are allowing people to start at 6 a.m., which is 2 hours earlier. I can't understand why we have broadly the similar circumstances here, and we're coming to different conclusions, and why we as a committee therefore wouldn't put exactly the same condition as we put on condition number 2 in the Warwick Boat Club application, why we wouldn't put that condition on to this application.
I think it's probably because they are different circumstances, and the environmental health officers would have commented on the Warwick Boat Club proposal based on whatever the circumstances were there. And forgive me, Councillor, I can remember it, but I can't remember all the details of it. In this particular case here, you've got quite extensive separation distances between the site and the nearest residential properties. You've got a scenario where the site is already in use, you know, between 6 a.m. and 10:30 p.m. And the question is, and as a local planning authority, we have no control over that. There is no planning permission for this site that controls the timing of the use of any of the courts on the site. So the question would be, how reasonable would it be to impose a different timing on these 2 additional courts in that wider set of circumstances?
Then I'm really confused about what we decided in the Warwick Boat Club, because there was a condition quite specific, requested by officers and supported by us as a committee. So I remember the application that it does restrict the time. So I have to admit, Mr. Fisher, I am somewhat confused by what apparent inconsistency.
Sorry, Councillor, you're somewhat confused by?
The Warwick Boat Club, we put a condition on 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. This one, we say we can't put a condition on in the timing, but we have done it previously. And that's why we seem to be taking an inconsistent approach. That's why I'm...
Well, I think we're looking at different scenarios, Councillor. Again, in this particular scenario, the environmental health officers have advised us that there isn't going to be any noise impact. That is their professional view. We've sort of talked about any impact from the lighting and how that can be ameliorated. And in this particular case, we've got a scenario where the club already operates over a certain range of hours across the day. So I think the difference is potentially because we were looking at slightly different circumstances. And although the proposals are similar, you know, depending on those circumstances and depending on the considerations, it might well be that we come out with a slightly different answer. I suppose my question would be, would it be reasonable to have 2 courts within this site, given all of the circumstances that we've described, that were subject to different operating times to the remainder of the site? My view, based on everything I know about this case, is that I don't think it would be. I think that's what our colleague was agreeing with a few minutes ago. However, it is a decision for planning committee, but your officer's advice is that in this particular case, that isn't necessary.
Did we not, on one of these panel court permissions, give a 12-month time to see what is...
Yes, that was the Warwick Boat Club one. Yeah.
So how long have Warwick got to go?
Till the end of March, I believe.
So circumstances could change then?
Yes, I'm sure Warwick would look at this as a consequence.
Yeah.
Could I just come back on that, Chair, before Councillor Kennedy comes in? Trying to remember the circumstances of the Warwick Boat Club. I think that one was retrospective, and so the courts were already there. And I think you're right. We did grant planning permission subject to a temporary condition. In this case, these two courts are not there, so that work hasn't yet happened. So that there's then a question about if members were considering a temporary permission, what we'd be saying to the club is that, yes, you can go ahead and invest in this development, but we're only going to give you planning permission for whatever time period it might be. And so then there's a question about whether in this set of circumstances that approach is entirely reasonable, given, I say again, that the advice that we're getting from our environmental health colleagues is that there isn't a noise concern in this case.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Warwick Boat Club, and my impression is, I can't do exact distances, that it's something like the distance to the nearest residences from the Warwick Boat Club padel court is significantly less than it is there, like something like half of it, which may have meant that we were more interested in imposing conditions. And also here we have pre-existing padel courts, already 4 established. This is just an additional 2. Whereas at Warwick Boat Club, I think they had instituted one, but it was a retrospective application. And interestingly, on Apple Maps, it doesn't show the padel court there at all at Warwick Boat Club, but that may be slightly out of date. So that's my understanding of why we might have decided differently in that case.
So we'll be reviewing Warwick in March anyway. Councillor Falber.
Yeah, on the similar lines, I was going to say, could we put a temporary one there? Because we're actually, there is noise issues and there is light issues because residents have already raised the concern. Our environmental health said it's not a problem. Fine, you know, we respect their decision. But we're actually going to add 2 more courts to this. We do not know if those 2 extra courts could actually increase the noise. Because it is a thing that's actually, it is noisy if you ever listen to it. It's a very different sound to a tennis court. So, like Councillor Phillips, I do have concerns with this because we're granting them permission to make more noise. And while I respect my environmental health officers, they're talking about now, their opinion, I presume, that they're saying, oh, 2 more won't make any more noise. But if it is already causing issues for our residents, then it will. It's just whether it's enough. So I was going to suggest temporary, but I can see Mr Fisher's, you know, would they be willing to put 2 courts in, which would cost money, which we could then take away next year. But we are not being consistent because for Warwick we said, and I have seen the light pollution and the noise, which I think a few of us have, but that they're suffering, were suffering and still are. So it doesn't fit comfortable just saying, yeah, go ahead, you know, even though it may make more noise. Difficult one. Difficult one.
Chairman, could I just make 2 comments? According to Google Maps, you can see the padel court at Warwick Boat Club. It's 50 metres from the back of the gardens on Bridge End. This is 150. So 3 times the distance. And just going back to the condition tests, any conditions you impose have to be necessary in planning terms. Now, an hours condition which relates to noise, that's a technical matter, and environmental health have not suggested that condition. So I would just caution the committee, if you impose that condition and it's appealed, environmental health won't defend the appeal. And it's a technical matter, it's not like design or it's not a judgment, it's a technical issue, and environmental health have not suggested such conditions. So I would caution the committee against imposing it. Thank you.
Councillor Hazelwood.
Yeah, so I don't know about the history of the Warwick one, but we have to kind of judge the one in front of us, I think. So the point about noise, it's 150 metres away from those houses, but it's the other side of the Coventry Road, so there's a certain amount of noise associated with the road traffic and light pollution associated with that. So I'm struggling to understand, in relative terms, an extra 2 courts, paddle courts, on the existing tennis court or complex. It seems to me that it's probably not a massive difference.
Councillor Luckhurst.
Thank you, Chair. I guess it's a legal question. If we were to grant this without condition, could Warwick Boat Club not come back and say, oh, we want the condition removed? Maybe that's what they'll do in March. Also, I wouldn't necessarily trust the first thing that comes up in Google search, but apparently paddle is 10 decibels higher on average. Make of that what you will.
It depends on 10 decibels higher from what? If it's 1 decibel.
And tennis, I guess. So, but, you know, I don't know anything about how scientific that was, so yeah, don't necessarily.
I did get involved in noise at one stage. Councillor Whiteman.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment to support what Councillor Phillips and Councillor Falber said in respect of the potential noise impact and the potential application of a condition, which is that, so looking at the page 5, where we've got the report from the Environmental Health Officer about noise impact. So the officer is referring to a complainant. So notwithstanding the fact that, as Councillor Islewood said, these properties are a greater distance away from the sports centre site than the Warwick Boat Club affected properties are. There is a complainant, so someone is obviously thinking that they either are affected or will be affected by the additional noise from the extra courts, if those are approved. And whilst the Environmental Health Officer has visited to observe the noise impact, they've only been able to observe the noise impact from the existing courts. So to my mind, the combination of a complainant who clearly feels already aggrieved, or they will be aggrieved by a magnification of the existing noise, and the Environmental Health Officer's inability to, at present, assess the noise impact from the addition of 2 extra courts, would support, if we can substantiate it, the addition of a condition around operating hours. Thank you.
I thought I'd picked up that we don't have the right to put hours on the operation at someone else.
Chairman, your officers are advising that that wouldn't meet the conditions tests. It's up to the committee, you're the decision makers. If you wish to impose such a condition, that's up to you, the committee.
It's probably not advisable, I would have thought. Anyone else? We're going to move. Councillor Kennedy.
I would like to propose that we grant permission in line with officers' recommendations.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hazelwood? Okay. All those in favour of the recommendations as set out? That's 7-4, bollocks. Those against? 7-3. That's clearly carried. Thank you. And 1 abstention. Clearly carried. Thank you very much. Oh, it's 8:45. Do you want to have a break? 5 minutes? 5 minutes. 5 minutes break. Welcome back to the planning meeting. We're now on agenda item 8, W/25/0287, 43 Foxes Way, Warwick.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is 43 Foxes Way in Warwick for the demolition of a conservatory at the rear, and then erection of a single-storey wraparound extension at the side and rear of house, and then erection of a single-storey front infill extension. It's come to committee because there have been 5 official objections from the neighbours. That's the site plan, so it's at a junction of Foxes Way and Leeville Crescent, and as you can see, it's a corner plot too. There are the block plans, so in the grey is where they want to build. As you can see, there's no change in the block plans. There's change in the drawings, but there's no change in floor space, so that's why it's the same. There's just the aerial image. In red is where the house is. They're just to the existing elevation, so I've just marked on the site plan there where the front elevation is, which is facing Foxes Way. You can see it's with the first image there. These are the initial proposed elevations, so as you can see, the infill extension at the front, and then the 2-storey side extension, then just a single-storey at the back. As you can see, these are the final elevations, so the only change there is that the 2-storey side extension is now single-storey. This is because there was a number of objections from neighbours, and planning officers said it was didn't follow design guidelines because the 2-storey element would have reduced the openness of the corner plot. So it's been changed now. Just put that there in case it's useful for comparison. And also the side extension's got a lean-to roof, which is preferred than a flat one. They're just the floor plans. So it's just in case that was useful, but the floor, you can see in the final floor plans, they've just removed the upper floor. There are just some images around the site. So as you can see on the picture on the edge, it's just a close-up of the building line on Leafros Crescent. Sorry, I forgot to mention about that. Can I just go back? Sorry. On the site plan, the width of the side extension aligns with the 2-storey structures on Leafros Crescent. So planning officers say that it doesn't affect that building line, which was another concern of neighbours as well. So the summary of main points. We had 7 responses from neighbours. 6 were objection to the initial plans. We had 1 objection where their concerns were overcome, so now we officially have 5. The 2-storey side extension has been reduced to single-storey. Therefore, this overcomes main concerns raised by neighbours and planning officers. The proposals are considered to follow design guidelines, be subservient to the original dwelling house, and not affect the building line on Leafros Crescent. Officers say that there's no material harm on neighbours, and the visual impact is considered to be neutral to the character of the area, and we now recommend it for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Phil.
Can we just have the photos back in, please? I've got no problem with it, so I'm happy to propose it, unless anybody wants to speak about it.
Councillor Kennedy, secondly. I'll shout around it. So I have a proposal to accept the recommendations as set out by the officers. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous, thank you very much. That's clearly carried. We now move on to agenda item 9, which is W/25/1078-477 Tatford Road, Whitnash.
Thank you, Chair. Planning permission is sought for the conversion of existing garage with single-storey extension and new gable roof to the front elevation. This application has been triggered to be considered at Planning Committee as the applicant is a councillor. This slide shows the application site as outlined in red. The application property is a detached two-storey dwelling located in Whitnash, Leamington Spa. This slide shows an aerial image of the application site with the approximate location outlined in red. To the north, south and east of the property lies neighbouring dwellings. This slide shows the existing and proposed ground floor plans. On the one side, the proposal will extend from the front elevation of the existing garage, which reads as a small infill front extension, projecting no further forward than the existing front porch elevation. On the other side, a small extension would bring the front window forward to level with the front of the projecting sidewall of the original house. This slide shows the existing and proposed front elevations. The addition of a gable roof at first floor is considered to be in keeping with properties within the immediate street scene. Proposed materials include facing brick at ground floor to match the existing property, with cladding at first floor. The use of cladding is considered acceptable as this is present on the existing property and those within the surrounding area. Furthermore, new doors and windows at ground floor will match the existing dwelling. This slide shows the existing and proposed southern elevations. The addition of the partially glazed door is considered acceptable based on existing relationships with neighbouring dwellings. This slide shows the block plan. The proposed development will not breach the 45-degree test on any neighbouring habitable windows. This photograph shows the host property as existing. This photo taken from another angle shows where the proposed infill extension will be located. The final photograph shows the application site in the context of adjacent neighbouring properties, both of which benefit from a gable roof at first floor. To summarise, planning permission is sought for the erection of a single-storey front extension with a gable roof to first floor. By reason of its siting, scale, design and materials, the proposed development is in accordance with policies B1, BE3 of the local plan and the guidance provided within the Residential Design Guide, and it is therefore recommended that planning permission be granted on this basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Falk was first by a short head.
The two things, one, you know I'm going to say. Firstly, declared interest because it's in Whitnash. Secondly, Laura, you never need to put Leamington Spa after Whitnash. Absolutely nothing to do with Leamington Spa. You just put Whitnash, Warwickshire. Because it's Whitnash, Warwickshire, nothing to do with Leamington Spa.
In that case, I'll call Councillor Luckhurst.
But I was going to propose it, that I can't, it actually will improve, I think.
Oh, sorry. Well, you can have it if you want.
All those in favour, please show. That's clearly unanimous, carried in line with the recommendations. Then we have item 11, it's a TPO where Councillor Gifford will disappear. CPO 592 Methodist Church, Dale Street, Royal Leamington Spa.
Thank you, Chairman. So, as members will see from the report, this item relates to the confirmation of 2 trees which are currently the subject of a provisional tree preservation order. You can see the 2 trees shown on the plan on the screen. Very close to the centre of Leamington, so an area that I'm sure many of us will be familiar with. I'm just going to run through the slides. And although the trees are relatively close to buildings both at the side and towards the rear, the separation distance at the side and the rear is around sort of 5-6 metres, and the tree officer doesn't feel that there is any significant concern either to the buildings or indeed to the health of the trees as a result of that juxtaposition. So I'll just keep running members through the slides, which are all slides of the trees just taken from various different angles to try and demonstrate the amenity value of the trees in the surrounding area. That might be the last one. And so, in summary, taken from the report, officers feel that the trees do contribute to the amenity of the surrounding area. Indeed, that's the reason that the tree preservation order was made originally. Our tree officer has thoroughly assessed the trees and believes that they are of TPO quality. And the report just does talk about the concerns that have been raised in objection to the confirmation of the tree preservation order, and the view that they, in officers' views, are not sufficient to outweigh the benefits, the amenity benefits of the trees, which is essentially the judgment that members are being asked to make this evening. And the concerns that were raised, our tree officer believes that they could be addressed by undertaking minor maintenance works to the trees. And of course, if members do decide to confirm the tree preservation order this evening, that doesn't mean that required works can't be undertaken to the trees. It simply means that it comes within the control of the District Council as local planning authority. And so members are recommended to authorise that the TPO be confirmed.
Members? Councillor Kennedy.
I would propose confirmation of the TPO in line with officers' recommendations.
Recommended by Councillor Russell.
Yes, I will second that.
All those in favour? Clearly carried. Thank you very much. TPOs will be set.
Make a comment on the appeals report. I'll say how pleased I was that the appeal was dismissed on 5 to 9 Tavistock Street. It was something that declared interest, being a member of CAF, that we were particularly wanted to preserve what is actually the back of the houses in the parade. So I'm really pleased that it's been dismissed. So it was, to us, an important site.
Yes, we had quite a debate on that one.
Yeah.
And we won. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Gifford.
Yes, I noticed that we seem to the planning inspectors seem to support us when it comes to refusing an application on conservation grounds. So our conservation officers, deserve some credit there. We seem to have more of a problem when it comes to HMOs, whether they're in the conservation area or not. There we seem to be in much greater danger of losing losing decisions, losing appeals. That was just a thought.
Anyone else anything on the appeals report? No, in that case, I declare the meeting closed, having finished all its business. Thank you.